exchange of scientific and technical knowledge. Members of the PUC sworn in before President Granger and CCJ Hare's oral arguments in December 21, 2018 vote. These and other stories on this week's InfoHub Recap, where we highlight the main stories carried from May 7 to May 10.
The future of Guyana has never looked better. Our nation is on the cusp of a development program like never seen before. While Guyana is now emerging as an energy giant through the discovery of massive reserves of oil and natural gas, it is your government's intention that the huge benefits emerging from this will go where it matters most, to you, the people of this beloved country. There is a surge of confidence in the way Guyana is governed once again, and the level of investor interest is unprecedented. Guyana is poised to become the breadbasket of the region, and the pace at which this nation will grow through prudent fiscal management will be nothing short of impressive. But more than anything else will be the way every Guyanese, regardless of color, class, or creed, becomes a part of this historic period of national transformation, sharing in the wealth and well-being of it all as one Guyana.
On Tuesday, we reported that Guyana participated in the largest oil and gas trade show in the world, the Offshore Technology Conference OTC 2019, and was well represented by a number of private and public agencies.
We're emerging as an oil and gas nation, and we've had little or no experience in this area. The opportunity to come here is largely to bring businesses from Guyana to get exposure for knowledge awareness and for a better understanding what happens in the industry, what is the value chain, and who know the major players in the industry. After that, the next opportunity is for them to network with some of the businesses in the industry so they can open doors of opportunities that are there.
With this in mind, a partnership was forged between GoInvest and Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry to take over 20 businesses to the conference being held in Houston, Texas.
Everybody that's come here, including the people that built the topside for the first FPSO, are extremely enthusiastic about Guyana. People are making plans based on our meetings here today to come down to Guyana. And I would say that we have generated a significant amount of interest in Guyana.
This interest is owed to Guyana being new to the oil and gas sector, while boasting high projections and serious prospects for development and investment.
Based on the traffic flow, I think the first day has been really successful. You have a lot of people talking, networking, learning, visiting our booth, and finding out a lot more about Guyana, this new frontier for the oil industry. And I think that the energy again has been extremely positive, and we're going to see a lot of partnerships starting to happen.
Being largely unknown by the rest of the world prior to our multiple oil discoveries, it goes without saying that many of the businesses present would have burning questions about tapping into the Guyana market.
There's a lot of interest in our market, and what we were able to do as a delegation that includes both government and private sector is answer questions of how to enter the Guyanese market. And I think that is going to be kind of the tipping point for firms who were on the fence.
Reporting for InfoHub, Nikosi Bruce.
The government of Guyana signed a memorandum of understanding with the National Service of Geology and Mining, Republic of Chile. The memorandum provides a framework for the exchange of scientific and technical knowledge concerning earth sciences and mining.
The signing took place in Santiago, Chile on Monday. The MOU was signed between Minister of Natural Resources Rafael Trotman and Chile's Minister of Mining Baldo Pecurica. The memorandum provides a framework for the exchange of scientific technical knowledge with respect to earth sciences and mining, and the extension of scientific and technical capabilities of the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission and Chile's National Service of Geology and Mining. Before the signing, Minister of Natural Resources Rafael Trotman met with Chile's Minister of Foreign Affairs Carolina Valdivia. During the meeting, both ministers praised the continued strong bilateral relations shared by Guyana and Chile. Both parties also highlighted the upcoming COP25 summit on December 2nd and 13th to be hosted in Santiago, an event that demonstrates the role Chile plays in climate change. The signing of this MOU brings to fruition areas discussed when His Excellency President David Granger visited Chile 2 years ago. We look to Chile as a good example for productive and safe mining practices and how the proceeds of mining can be utilized for benefit of the citizens. This relationship between Guyana and Chile will benefit our people immensely, and we can look to no better example than Chile of how to do it properly, says Minister Trotman. Chile's Minister of Mining, Baldo Procurica, says his country is pleased to be able to share its knowledge and expertise with Guyana. He says, "We are very interested in signing this agreement and for the collaboration, especially in geological services." Under this memorandum, there will be exchanges of technical information, visits, participation in training courses, conferences, symposia, the exchange of professional geoscientists in areas of mutual interest, and any other cooperative research consistent with programs of the parties. For InfoHub, Felicia Valenzuela.
The second round of consultations on the 2006 Amerindian Act was held in Region 2 as the government remains committed to its promise made to ensuring indigenous rights.
The government of Guyana, your government, is very serious when it comes to indigenous rights.
Member of Parliament Mervyn Williams. MP Williams spoke with residents of indigenous communities in Region 2, Pomeroon-Supinam, following 2 days of consultations on the 2006 Amerindian Act No. 6 at Lake Mainstay. On day one, the communities met with the independent attorney contracted by the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, who acted on their behalf, answering any questions or queries they may have with regards to the 2006 Amerindian Act.
I'm happy to be at this forum today.
Among the issues raised, the lessening of control and final say on matters by the subject minister, a change in the term and meaning of resident as it pertains to benefits in the Act, an indigenous health institution, and the name Amerindian in the Act to be replaced with the name Indigenous. As day one wrapped up, the communities were told by Martin Chung, Special Advisor to the Minister, that this was not the final stop, as when they returned to their villages, if they had further concerns, they could write to the Ministry's Secretariat.
Delighted to see the kind of support we're getting from the communities. As you would have noticed, for the past 2 days we had 100% participation from the communities. It's very expensive to do consultations with the communities individually. So what we have done, we have consultations at central areas, and we bring communities, the surrounding communities, to that central point. And in some instances, we had communities who, on the first occasion of the consultation with them, weren't comfortable with the time limit they had, and some of them said they were not adequately prepared. So we did commit to them, or we committed to them, that we will try to come back and to have another consultation with them. And the Region 2 consultation that we had in the past 2 days was as a result of the request made last year.
We spoke to the participants of the consultation, and this is what they had to say.
For me, it was open, and we had a couple of minutes and hours to get the recommendation up that we have presented. But I think it's still open that we could submit our recommendation in later date in writing to the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs.
The consultation, it was very fruitful. We got over some things that we had really want to get over to the lawyer, and for they to put it together for us. And I think it's been well.
It was a very worthwhile and fruitful effort. We need to have some changes in the Act. There are some things we as Tushos would like to see included.
From Lake Mainstay Resort in Region 2, along with videographer Kareem Peters, Felicia Valenzuela, InfoHub.
Dr. Leyland Marvin Lucas and Verlin Dawn Eleanor Class were on Wednesday sworn in before President David Granger to serve as members of the Public Utilities Commission, PUC. According to a media release from the Ministry of the Presidency, the PUC is the guardian of the public interest. It has the responsibility to ensure that public utility services are delivered to the people in a manner that is safe, adequate, efficient, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. The Commission, in so doing, is tasked with ensuring ensuring that the public utility laws are upheld. Government expects that the Commission will continue to ensure that citizens' welfare will be continuously enhanced through the provision and delivery of public utility services. Participants from across the Caribbean met on Wednesday at the Arthur Chang Convention Center for the 8th International Road Federation Caribbean Regional Congress.
From bridges to walkways, countries across the region will be touching on this and many more at the 8th IRF Caribbean Regional Congress.
This is the 8th edition of the Caribbean Regional Congress under the theme Modernizing the Regional Roads for Future Generations comes at a critical point of the economic and social transformation that is unfolding in Guyana. Today, we can proudly declare that we have moved beyond the stage of conceptualization to development and implementation of projects that will not only shape the landscape of our country, but integrate our populace through infrastructural access.
The conference is especially critical for Guyana as the country prepares to usher in first oil in 2020 following our discoveries of offshore oil and gas resources, which calls for a strengthening of onshore infrastructure.
In this regard, our Ministry of Public Infrastructure has embarked on its infrastructural development plan, which sets the stage for the next 5 years. Populated by improved roads, bridges, overpass, ports, and stellings. From the Rupununi to Oriala, Linden to Quarantine, Paramatatoy to Port Kaituma. Our plan includes construction and rehabilitation of key roadways and links, bridges, port developments, and shore development works.
Meanwhile, following the launch in a ministerial meeting to discuss the questions and issues raised while offering solutions, a proposal was made by Minister of Public Infrastructure David Patterson to have technocrat members chosen as country representatives.
So what happens is that if somebody that doesn't have outside of our mandate, they'll take the lead and push it quickly. What happens is that at the 9th regional conference, you'll see 5 different phases. Yes. And you start the whole ball over, the whole process over, the whole background and everything like that. And that has been the whole issue with several of these great initiatives.
Against this reasoning, the IRF chairman tasked each of the ministers present with nominating a country representative to be long-serving members on the committee. Reporting for InfoHub, Nikosi Bruce.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu, addressing the IRF Congress, reminded officials that they will be discussing critical matters which will impact the region's transport sector.
Held under the theme Modernizing the Region's Roads for Future Generation, Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu during his feature address told the participants that Guyana is home to the CARICOM Secretariat and will become the formidable capital of CARICOM.
You're coming home, all of you. This is the home of the CARICOM Secretariat, and we hope in a not too long distant future that we will become the formidable capital of CARICOM. You're here to discuss serious business, to discuss critical matters that will impact the road and transportation sector in our region. We expect many takeaways from your discussions over the next 2 days. We are immersed in the vision of a Guyana where superhighways, roads, railways, river crossings and bridges will create the vital link between our Atlantic seacoast and our southern border, which is the enterprising gateway to the rest of South America. Our people demand high standards, and so your presence here today in Guyana for the first time is an assurance to our people of Guyana and the peoples of the Caribbean that we have friends and we have dependable partners with good works being developed in Guyana. All roads will lead to this country of promise because infrastructure will ensure that whoever comes to invest here is investing in a safe and sound economy.
IRF's board member, Dr. Kamil Kalush, said people and goods need to move for an economy to grow.
Your presence today underscores the vital connection between Guyana's network of roads and its socioeconomic aspirations at this critical inflection point in your nation's trajectory. Economic prosperity truly is key to realizing the good life, as His Excellency President Brigadier David Granger recently noted, and good roads will help get you there.
The International Road Federation, IRF, serves as a network of public and private sector members in more than 70 countries by providing world-class knowledge resources, advocacy services, and continuing education programs which together offer a global marketplace for best practices and industry solutions.
Reporting from the Otachang Conference Center with videographer Kenyan Bacchus, Rebecca Ganesh, InfoHub.
The European Union has been a valued partner in human and economic development, particularly for small developing states like Guyana. As such, the cooperative holds the relationship with the EU at the highest level. This assurance was given by President David Granger as he addressed the gathering at the Europe Day celebration hosted at the Pegasus Hotel.
Guyana attaches the highest priority to relations with the European Union, which has been a valued partner in human and economic development, particularly for small developing states. Our long-standing relationship has been cemented within the ambit of successive Lomé conventions and the current ACP-EU Cotonou Partnership Agreement.
His Excellency President David Granger, reflecting on the time Guyana led negotiations on behalf of the Caribbean, and said it was indeed an honor to have been accorded that responsibility. The agreement marked the conception of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States, ACP, which has enjoyed a vibrant partnership with the EU, commencing with the first Lome Convention of 1975.
Georgetown, our capital, you will recall, was the site for the signing of the Georgetown Agreement on the 6th of June, 1975. This agreement marked the conception of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States, ACP, which has enjoyed a vibrant partnership with the EU, commencing with the first Lomé Convention of 1975. The Georgetown Agreement paved the way also for Guyana to benefit from trade and developmental cooperation with the European Union in diverse fields.
These include agriculture, coastal zone management, education, health, housing, infrastructure development, public financial management reform, and private sector development. Europe Day symbolizes Europe's quest for peace through economic cooperation and integration. As the celebration got underway at the Pegasus Hotel Tuesday evening, Dr. Karen Cummins, the new foreign minister, also joined the celebrations. For InfoHub, Kippany Jordan.
Also on Wednesday, we reported that the Sexual Offences Act, Section 44, provides for the establishment of a sexual offences court. And in keeping with this law, the Supreme Court officially launched its second sexual offences court in New Amsterdam, Berbice.
The construction of the courtroom took approximately 3 months to be completed at a cost of $13 million and is housed at the Berbice High Court, Esplanade Road, New Amsterdam. Chancellor of the Judiciary, Acting Justice Yonit Cummins Edwards, highlighted that the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has collaborated with the Justice Department and significantly contributed to the much-needed financial support and capacity building to ensure that justice is served in a fair and efficient manner.
The aim of the Sexual Offences Court is at best to minimize re-victimization of survivors of sexual violence. The Sexual Offences Court seeks to minimize this by providing the facilities that would support victims as they give their evidence.
To date, there are 37 cases involving sexual offenses in Berbice, and the acting chancellor said those cases will be handled in a dignified manner that respects the privacy of its victims. Britain's Deputy High Commissioner, Ray Davidson, applauded the Supreme Court for establishing such an advanced courtroom, a new system which replicates much of what is being used in the United Kingdom.
It will allow survivors to be able to give their side of events in a more conducive environment.
It might also encourage others who have suffered abuse to come forward and feel comfortable in knowing that they will be treated with respect and dignity.
Kippany Jordan, InfoHub.
The Trinidad-based Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, on Thursday began hearing oral arguments relating to the December 21, 2018 vote in the National Assembly.
In the Christopher Ram versus the Attorney General of Guyana case, Ram's petition to the court was for the government to resign and His Excellency President David Granger call an election within 90 days as stipulated in the Constitution. Hearing number 2, the opposition leader, Bar Jagdeo versus the Attorney General of Guyana, Basil Williams, Dr. Barton Scotland, and Joseph Harmon. Hearing number 3, Charandas Prasad versus Compton Reed, Bar Jagdeo, Joseph Harmon, and Dr. Barton Scotland. This last hearing has to do with the eligibility of Charandas Prasad to vote in the National Assembly. When the hearings began this morning, a number of government ministers observed the proceedings from the public gallery. They included Minister Sidney Alicock, who's the Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, and Dr. Nicolette Henry, the Minister of Education. In the afternoon session, Attorney General Basil Williams made his presentation.
Sir Dennis at 164 actually said that the shallowest level of entrenchment was the absolute majority. And you determine that when you look at the words or the language of a majority of all elected members of the National Assembly. And he said that that was more difficult than the ordinary legislation which only requires a simple majority, being a majority of those who voted. So it's this very House created that dichotomy and actually explained the Guyana Constitution, which has been very welcome. And therefore, the majority couldn't be the same majority as a simple majority because we don't have an even number parliament. We recognize that there's a coincidence where you apply the arithmetical formula to the absolute majority of half plus 1, where you apply it to an even number parliament, as in Kilman, there's a coincidence that they appear to be the same, as when all 65 members turn up and are present and voting on a simple majority. But when it comes to the uneven parliament, such as Guyana, you have a situation when you apply the formula that the majority would be at least 34 in our 65-member parliament, bearing in mind that the majority for 64 is 33. So it follows logically that the majority for 65 has to be more than 33.
Hearing on the December 21 vote continues tomorrow before the CCJ. From Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, with senior videographer Kwesi Wishart, Felicia Valenzuela, InfoHub.
Public-private partnerships, green pavements, and work zone safety were just some of the areas addressed as the 8th International Road Federation IRF Regional Congress continued at the Arthur Chung Convention Center.
Presenters with expertise in areas related to the development of roads provided informative material to the diverse field of participants at the IRF Congress. Public-private partnerships, PPP, from strategy to implementation was a topic that drew intense discussions.
It is vital that you do your homework before you start a project preparation. And this is what Jamaica did. And this is my alternative definition of PPPs. Project preparation pays.
Minister of Public Infrastructure David Patterson, whose ministry organized the Congress, expressed thoughts on the day's discussions.
You know, Guyana was embarking on PP projects in New Demerara River Bridge crossing, the second phase of the Linden Lethem crossing, which we want to do in the same PPP format. We, as the Caribbean persons, have unique cultures, unique designs, and unique requirements. So therefore, obviously, we're trying to learn from our colleagues.
Discussions were also centered on spending sufficient monies to prepare for projects.
You could not spend enough money on doing these technical traffic studies, legal studies, and so on.
To this end, Minister Patterson provided a comment.
I have been accused of spending a lot of money on the, pre-feasibilities and feasibility studies and those things like that. So I'm glad that I'm somewhat vindicated that everyone says that the more money you put in the feasibility and the project preparation documents, the better the project will be. So we will continue what we've been doing and preparing quite well for what is to come for our infrastructure.
Other topics included work zone safety and improving mobility, construction and testing, road safety audits, and innovative road procurement and financing. Reported from the Arthur Chung Conference Center with videographer Anil Silal, Shaquille Bourne for InfoHub.
The youth of Anai and neighboring village Masara in the North Rupununi were commended for their active participation in community development.
I am so impressed by the way the young people are putting themselves in order, putting themselves in key positions to have a good life.
Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs Sini Alikok. He was speaking at a community meeting in Masara village where he presented funding to equip the Masara sports clubs while Anna youths received for the extension of a restaurant. He explained that the initiative was delivering on a promise made to the youths. Vice President of the Masara Football Club, Lenny Moses, said that the funding is timely.
I want to thank you for responding to our request. And it came just in time because at the moment, as we speak, we have 3 sets of tournament.
At Sarama, the ministry is also supporting the village to revive its woodworking center. The youths will be making furnitures for the schools and residents based on orders. Seneca Thorne, InfoHub.
Oral submissions into Guyana's December 21 vote were heard before the Trinidad-based Caribbean Court of Justice on Friday.
It's day 2 of oral submissions before the CCJ. Oral submissions began at 9 o'clock. First to make his presentation was Senior Counsel Neil Boston. He is representing Compton Reed. He was then followed by Attorney at Law Roy Ford, who is representing Joseph Harmon. During a quick break, we had a word with Mr. Ford.
This is the fundamental to why we're here appealing. What is really the meaning of the provision? Those on the other side are contending that the phrase vote of confidence, which appears in Article 106 of our Constitution, means a vote of no confidence, as you would find in the Trinidadian Constitution. We're saying that it means exactly what it says, a vote of confidence. So my submission was geared on putting that provision into context in relation to all the provisions of the Constitution as a whole. So it is our submission that it does not mean a vote of no confidence. It means a vote of confidence. It means that it could be brought by the government. But that provision does not permit a vote of no confidence to be brought to trigger the consequences. But I'm not saying that you can't bring a vote of no confidence. It's just that you cannot have the consequences provided under Article 106 if you don't comply with it. So to comply with it, you have to file a vote of confidence. You win it, and you have the consequences of it.
He also explained the importance of this case for the entire region.
The provisions that the court has to determine are provisions peculiar to the provisions of our Constitution. There's no other provision in the Constitution similar in Trinidad, Jamaica, anywhere else. So what is a vote of confidence is only a vote of confidence for Guyana. All the other constitutions provide something different. As a Caribbean community, I think we should be paying attention. We should be paying attention to what is happening in our neighboring countries as a whole, have an interest in it. But it is not that it would necessarily constitutionally impact on their constitution. But we should understand as a Caribbean community, at the Caribbean Court of Justice, that we have a common interest, which is the development and well-being of the region as a whole.
From Port of Spain with senior videographer Kwesi Wishart, Felicia Valenzuela, InfoHub.
In less than a year, Guyana will experience an oil boom, which will catapult it to the top of South America's rich list.
An online report from the BBC highlighted that with a population of around 750,000 in per capita terms, Guyana's wealth is set to skyrocket. ExxonMobil, the main operator in Guyana, says it has discovered more than 5.5 billion barrels worth of oil beneath the country's waters in the Atlantic Ocean. With this in mind, the government of Guyana, through the Department of Energy, has embarked on a series of engagements across the country to educate the populace on the imminent wealth. In the article, head of the Environmental Protection Agency, Vincent Adams, noted that with the impending oil boom, education is the key to avoiding the oil curse. According to him, education is the foundation and is the best investment that Guyana or any country can make. ExxonMobil has made 13 discoveries offshore Guyana in the Stabroek Block and is expected to begin oil production in 2020.
As part of the Ministry of Public Health mandate and in accordance with the Constitution, the Tobacco Control Council was established.
The newly launched council consists of 10 members. Minister of Public Health Valda Lawrence had some advice for the council.
Being on this council will give you an insight in a very in-depth way in terms of why the government, and more particularly the Ministry of Public Health, is taking such a stance on tobacco.
Member of the council and attorney at law, Cassandra Alves, cited the need for governments to control the tobacco industry.
What we call Article 5.3 provisions. Article 5.3 is an article in the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control that requires that the government protect tobacco control policies and laws from tobacco industry interference. And we experienced a lot of this interference. I gave you a little highlight of the day when we were trying to pass the bill, but this interference started way back in 2011 while we were holding consultations. They also held consultations, invited the medical community, tried to debunk the scientific evidence that has proven that smoking is bad for your health. And, they tried to lobby members of parliament, try to sway them so that they wouldn't vote in favor of tobacco control. So we've had tobacco industry interference throughout this process. And so we have very strong Article 5.3 provisions in the Act that requires that, if you have a conflict of interest, you can't be involved in tobacco control.
Guyana is currently on the list with 5 other Caribbean countries that has managed to have tobacco control and regulations. According to Act 17, Part 3 in the Constitution, the role of the Tobacco Control Council is to advise the minister on matters related to tobacco control and the administration and enforcement of this act.
Now we need qualified human and other resources for implementation, whether we train the staff that we have, whether we hire people to deal specifically with tobacco control, but human and financial resources are an issue. We need to train our enforcement officers, that's the police, customs, our health inspectors, our officers in the Bureau of Standards, our occupational safety and health authority workers, our EPA workers, everybody that the Act, so in the Act, these persons are specified as enforcement officers.
For InfoHub, Kippany Jordan.
Chief Executive Officer of the Guyana Power and Light Incorporated, Albert Gordon, provides a statement on recent spates of power outages.
At 11:24 hours, the Demerara-Berbice interconnected system suffered a major shutdown. However, consumers along the west coast of Demerara were still powered. This was as a result of technical difficulties or failure to one of our 69 kV transformer that is rated at 35 MVA. Due to the fault of that transformer, we subsequently lost approximately 35 megawatts of power. That's from the 2 power stations at Kingston, which resulted in areas in Demerara and Berbice being out of power.
Kingston 2 power plant had encountered technical glitches that resulted in the loss of approximately 19 megawatts, leading to more power outages that affected residents of Demerara. GPL effectively restored electricity by 14:38 hours on Friday.
Well, the situation is definitely under control. We are working around the clock to ensure that there is no reoccurrence.
Reported from the GPL power station in Safaya with videographer Mahinda Raj, Shaquille Bourne, for InfoHub.
This has been InfoHub Recap. Remember to subscribe to our website for more stories and follow us on our social media platforms. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend. Goodbye.